Gonna go live here, and you are live.
Okay, thank you. We'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. I'd like to accept a motion to accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys have it. Very good. Now what we'll do is we'll move into the list of legislation. I believe we have 3 items that are up for a public hearing this afternoon. The process is we will ask those that wish to speak before the committee be sworn in by a representative of our law department before we begin the public hearing process. After you're sworn in, we will then get a report from our planning department in reference to the proposed conditional use or the item that's up for public hearing. We'll ask for those in favor, then we'll ask for those against. And then we'll open it up to questions from the committee and then open it up to questions for all of council. And then after that, we'll basically repeat that process this evening at 7 o'clock. Everyone will be invited back at 7 o'clock. The only real difference is that the committee will then make a recommendation to all of council in reference to the conditional use or the zoning map amendment or what have you, redevelopment plan, whatever we're having the public hearing on. So we'll make a recommendation this evening, and that's the process. Thank you all. Again, I apologize for being tardy. And we'll go ahead and begin. First of all, let's ask if there's anyone here that's going to wish to testify before the committee. We'll ask our representative from our law department, I believe that's Rebecca Advent, to please swear in those individuals. Thank you.
Would those wishing to speak during this public hearing please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. The first item that's up for public hearing is the ordinance approving Chapel Hill redevelopment plan, making necessary findings in connection therewith. Mr. Mulhauser, I believe you're here on this, or?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yes. Good afternoon, members of Planning Committee. My name is Kurt Mulhauser, the Department of Planning. The Chapel Hill Mall redevelopment area is located in northeast Akron and is bordered by the city limits to the north, Britton Road to the east, Buchholzer Boulevard to the west, and Independence Avenue to the south. The redevelopment area consists of 3 tax parcels occupying approximately 72 acres and includes Chapel Hill Mall and the surrounding parking lots. Aside from the mall, 3 standalone structures are located within the redevelopment area boundary, including an automobile service center, a vacant structure previously occupied by Sears Auto Care, and a small vacant enclosure once used for drive-through key repairs. The mall was constructed in 1967. The interior of the mall is still in good condition despite a low occupancy rate. Of the approximately 75 storefronts in the mall, including kiosks, approximately 20 are occupied with tenants. Storage of America occupies the previous anchor location on the north end of the mall. The other 2 anchor tenant spaces are vacant. The surface parking areas are largely unused. Immediate surrounding land uses are primarily retail with some commercial development. Chapel Hill Church and Christian School is located immediately north of the mall. The Chapel Hill Mall redevelopment plan contains a description of area boundaries, a statement of objectives, a land use plan, and a description of the techniques and standards to accomplish plan objectives. The establishment of the redevelopment plan gives the city the ability to assist development in the established area utilizing tax increment financing under provisions of the Ohio Revised Code. Zoning within the redevelopment area is retail business. Conditional zoning for commercial use has been approved for storage of America location and the vacant former Sears department store. Proposed zoning within the redevelopment area is Unified Plan Development District Class UPD 49. Permitted land use will include commercial development with some restrictions, retail and residential. It is in the interest of the city of Akron to facilitate new development and reinvestment that will create jobs for the residents of the city. The proposed redevelopment plan and zoning change will assist the city in facilitating development within the designated area. The Department of Planning and Urban Redevelopment recommends approval of the Chapel Hill Mall redevelopment area report and plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mulhauser, for that report. Now we'll open up the public hearing portion. I see there's a number of individuals that signed up today for this particular public hearing. First, and I'll just go through the list of names that I have, and then I'll ask if there's anyone else. So the first name that I have on my list, and if you could please give us your name and address and make a few brief comments, we would certainly appreciate that. Thank you. First up, I will ask Mr. Martin. I see Jeff Martin is the first individual to speak. You're welcome to speak, Mr. Martin. Again, please provide for us your name and address.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council. Jeff Martin with Industrial Commercial Properties, located 6675 Parkland Boulevard in Solon, Ohio. Appreciate the collaborative effort that we've had with the planning staff and the entire city of Akron as we've been working to help create a unique zoning district that will set this property up for future success. We have, I think, a great opportunity here to take a kind of long distressed asset and really turn it around and bring life back to the Chapel Hill Mall area. So ICP, which is Industrial Commercial Properties, currently owns the Sears property, which was purchased latter half of last year. And we have a contract to purchase majority of the mall from Cohen Properties, not inclusive of the Storage of America property on the north end of the mall. Appreciate the working relationship and think this is a great step forward to help turn around the project, and happy to answer questions if there are any for me.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you. Now we'll ask if Jordan Burns could please present to the committee at this time.
Thanks very much. I'm counsel to ICP, and so all I'll do right now is reiterate what Jeff Martin just said on behalf of ICP. We really do appreciate the effort that the city has put into working with us on putting in place a means and the mechanisms for the redevelopment of the Chapel Hill Mall, and we look forward to continuing to work with the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Very good. Next, Thomas Fitzpatrick, although I believe we have a letter here from you, Mr. Fitzpatrick, for Sarah Viviano to read in.
Okay, this is from Thomas Fitzpatrick. He says, on behalf of Storage of America, SOA Akron, Maine at 1977 Buckholzer Boulevard at Chapel Hill Mall, we are pleased that the city is considering a redevelopment plan for the mall. As you are aware, we successfully redeveloped the old Macy's portion of the mall into a climate-controlled drive-through self-storage facility back in 2018 and 2019, following our expeditious departure from the old Rolling Acres Mall to accommodate Amazon. Even with the move, our Akron location is a leader within our company, and our staff at the site continue to excel in customer service and property management. Over the last year, the one very troubling circumstance that affected our business was the delinquency by the mall owner in paying taxes and their payment of
excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, we did receive your letter, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Thank you. And we're going to be following up on that portion of it. Wasn't necessarily referenced the zoning before us, but we will be following up. As you know, we've done that. So thank you for your commentary, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Thank you. Is there anything you wanted to add? Yes, sir. You're on mute. Take it off of mute, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're good. Good to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't hear very well, so I use headphones when I'm on the computer. One of the other things is part of the redevelopment plan that was being discussed was that looking at future plans and such for the mall, but I hadn't heard any feedback from the city planning department on what our plans are for that portion of the mall, or that portion of the area. And I believe the way it was, we're part of the development inclusive of that, or at least the zoning change, and we're all for this whole thing because I think it's way overdue. And we're willing to work with the city in doing that. But nobody had asked us for any input on what our future plans are for the property. We do own a substantial part of the parking lot on the north side as well. So besides the water issue, it's also working on what we are. We want to make sure that we're not missing an opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Thank you. Next, I'll ask Robert Walker. So Robert Walker here. I'm not seeing Robert Walker. Sarah, did Robert Walker check in?
I'm looking now as well. I don't see him.
Is there a Derek Walker? Possibly.
Doesn't look like he signed in either.
Yeah, I got the meeting notice for this part of it a little later. So I don't know if, I know that they might be on to the council meeting tonight, but maybe not now.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Thank you for that heads up. Then I'm assuming, because I also see Kathleen Lamb and Luann Laughlin have signed up. So maybe that's for this evening. Unless they're here, have been present and like to make a comment, we'll ask, not seeing them. We'll ask us if there's anyone else wishing to make a comment in terms of the approving the Chapel Hill redevelopment plan. Anyone wishing to speak against or in favor of that plan? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, not hearing or seeing anyone. We'll close the public hearing portion and we'll now move on to the portion where committee members can ask questions. Are there any committee members with questions in reference to the redevelopment plan at Chapel Hill? Any committee members? Okay, not seeing anyone. How about council members? Any council members with questions at this time?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you can see the hands raised.
Very good. I'll see 3 hands. I see 3 hands
Yeah.
up. We'll just go right down the list here that I have on my computer anyways. Mr. Lombardo will ask you first to speak, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to introduce myself as councilman for the ward, and that if I haven't met them already, but I do support the redevelopment of Chapel Hill Mall. So again, my name is Phil Lombardo, and feel free to contact me either through the city clerk's office, and anything I can do to support the redevelopment of the mall, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardo. Ms. Amobian, I see your hands up. If you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, certainly I support the redevelopment of Chapel Hill Mall. There's no question about that. It appears that some of the problems we've had in the past is that the people that have tried to develop it or redevelop it or purchase it did not have the funds to support the utilities. And I don't know if it's appropriate or not. Do we have some type of assurance that the utilities would be covered? Is there any way to put down advancements and stuff? Because part of the challenge of keeping tenants is that they need to be reassured that their water and utilities would not be shut off. And I know that was part of the challenge before. And I'm not really sure what this developer has in mind in terms of reaching out to the tenants and reassuring them, because we don't certainly want to lose anyone, but we certainly don't want to be reading in the paper every other week that utilities are on the verge of being shut off. So could the developer speak to this, please?
Yeah, at this time, I don't think we have, that's a separate issue than the redevelopment plan itself in terms of the public hearing. I can tell this to you, Ms. Amobian, that Mr. Fitzpatrick and Mr. Luddle have spoken, referenced the water piece of the equation. And so I do know that there is discussions between the two on that. So, but we'll stick to the redevelopment plan. And I see Mr. Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess just in looking through the plan, and forgive me, I may have missed something, but the two thoughts came to mind. I don't know whether it'd be appropriate from planning staff or planning director. What are we looking at in terms of the timeline? And then two, to Mr. Fitzpatrick's point, what are some of the thoughts as to, the current uses versus kind of the wholesale redevelopment of the entire area?
Very good. Mr. Mulhauser, would you like to answer that, or?
I could start, Mr. Chairman, and
Yes, Mr. Segedy.
further detail if needed. The redevelopment plan is pretty flexible in terms of timeline. It doesn't necessarily spell out an explicit chronology, but it's more to put forward some general principles for redevelopment of the site. So we've got a lot of flexibility, and I think a lot of the timing would really be contingent and dependent on, the development team and how they would go forward.
Okay. Mr. Malik, okay.
Yeah, on the second question, what is the thought process around, engagement with folks like Mr. Fitzpatrick, and whether some of those out uses would remain versus not? Has there been discussion about that?
Yeah, the Office of Integrated Development, we have been, in communications with the team about some of the things that are recommended in the plan, including the land use and out parcels and so forth. So I think the idea would be that the city would continue to partner and discuss, specific, physical redevelopment of those parcels, both, the parking lot as well as the physical buildings.
So it's the intent that the whole property would be developed, by a single developer.
It wouldn't necessarily have to be a single developer, but the redevelopment plan does cover the entire 72-acre site. So, all of the parking lots as well as the former department stores, the mall itself. But the plan does have flexibility where there could, there are and could be multiple entities redeveloping portions of the site.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there any further questions or comments from anyone? Those are all good questions. Okay, very good. Not seeing any. Of course, we'll invite everyone back this evening if they do have questions, or excuse me, to the 7 o'clock public hearing as well. So without seeing any hands up or anything, we'll move on to the next item, which is ordinance amending the zoning map as referred to in section 153.220, and the zoning code is referred to in section 153.100 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Akron 2004 to establish a planned development district to permit residential, limited business, retail, commercial uses on approximately 72 acres of land containing Chapel Hill Mall, generally bounded by the city limits to the north, Britton Road to the east, Buckholzer Boulevard to the west, and Independence Avenue on the south. So with that, I assume, Mr. Antonucci, you're here to give us a report on this one.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Yeah, this is the rezoning piece that Kurt had talked about, which is part of the redevelopment plan. This establishes the Unified Plan Development District, UPD 49, which amends the current retail zoning designation to allow select commercial uses. It's also brings in development controls as well, but this also still allows the retail uses that are there. It allows residential uses as well, which is currently allowed under the retail. So what it does is it opens it up to more uses that are permitted. So for Mr. Fitzpatrick, you rest assured that the mini storage use is continued to be a permitted use. Also, along with that, we could bring in other retail uses potentially. Light assembly would be another potential use that could be permitted there. So it just brings in a lot of things. What it doesn't allow, though, are newer used motor vehicle sales body and fender repair shops, used tire sales, trash hauling businesses and kennels. So it does exclude some of those uses that would be more difficult in the neighborhood. But so that's the rezoning piece we're looking at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Very good. With that report, we'll now open up the public hearing portion. And I do see the two gentlemen had signed up for this piece as well. Mr. Martin, if you'd like to address the committee again or on this particular piece, you're welcome to.
Yeah, no, I think I'll just comment that, we really appreciate the working effort to permit, kind of maximum flexibility here in terms of what the end uses can be. And, feel like, the old adage of, activity breeds activity, we can help kind of revitalize the whole area, with this, additional zoning flexibility. So happy to answer more questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you. Next, Mr. Byrne, Jordan Burns. I believe he was on earlier. Oh, there you are, Mr. Burns. Any
Thanks.
further comment? Reference the zoning map piece?
Again, just to reiterate what Jeff Martin just said, we appreciate the city's assistance here. This is obviously this is vital to the redevelopment efforts of the shopping mall, and we appreciate the understanding that there is a need for a great deal of flexibility in seeking and accommodating users for the mall property so that it can be a vibrant redevelopment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Any further questions or comments from anyone who's been sworn in or would like to be sworn in? Any further comments or questions? Looking for the hand raise, not seeing anyone, so very good. We'll close the public hearing portion and open up to any committee members. If there's any committee members that have any questions whatsoever, please raise your hand or be recognized. I did see, I do have a question myself, Mr. Antonucci, in reference to the zoning map. I see here we're also including to permit residential, limited business. So the residential piece, can you speak briefly about that?
Well, yeah, currently under the retail zoning that we have there now, that does allow residential uses. So there could be the possibility of an outlot becoming, I don't know, a small apartment development or something to that effect. So we are looking at the possibility there of some residential. So it's really mixed use development, residential all the way up through commercial uses.
Very good. Thank you. I suspected that. Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Again, is there any committee members with any questions? Not seen anyone. So now we're going to open up to council altogether. Any council members have any questions or comments in reference to this, to the zoning map amendment for Chapel Hill area? Any council members? Okay, not seeing any. Again, I'll invite everyone back this evening at 7 o'clock and we'll continue we'll have public hearings at that time. Again, the only difference is the committee will make a recommendation to all of council this evening at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much for all attending. You're welcome to stick around if you'd like, or if you'd like to go off, you can. Thank you very much for being here with us. The third item that's up for public hearing is ordinance authorizing conditional use to construct a self-storage facility at 1990 Buckholzer Boulevard. Mr. Antonucci, I assume you're going to provide a report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Brady Sullivan Properties LLC proposes to renovate the existing 45,000 square foot single-story building to develop a climate-controlled indoor storage facility. The planned storage facility would consist of individual indoor climate-controlled self-contained units of various sizes. The petitioner would make cosmetic upgrades to the existing well-maintained brick and split-face block building. The petitioner also intends to construct 6 non-climate controlled exterior buildings in the existing main parking lot between the former store and the street. This component of construction would yield 24,000 gross square feet of storage area. The buildings would range in footprint from 2,145 square feet to 3,960 square feet. These storage units would be of similar size similar design and materials as the main building. Landscaping would be provided at the building ends and along the street frontage. The goal of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan is to promote the preservation and revitalization of viable business districts. The use of this formerly retail property for self-storage will provide a community service for residents and business users alike without imposing on surrounding businesses, while helping this area survive in a changing retail landscape. And Office of Integrated Development Planning staff and Planning Commission recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thanks for the report, Mr. Antonucci. At this point, we'll open up for a public hearing. I do see we had two folks sign up, Mr. John Sullivan and Chris Lewis on the same device there. So whichever one would like to begin, please provide for us your name and address. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Chris Lewis. I'm at 670 North Commercial Street, Manchester, New Hampshire. We are a self-storage developer. We focus on first-class self-storage facilities around the country. We're looking forward to the opportunity of working in Akron and appreciate any support that you have for us. And we're here to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Very good. Mr. Sullivan, I assume that's you as well. If you had any comments.
No additional comments. Just like to reiterate what Chris said. We appreciate the collaboration and the openness for this opportunity. So please feel free to ask any questions. Happy to answer.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to make any comments in reference to the conditional use request to construct a self-storage facility at 1990 Buckholzer? Anyone else with any questions or comments whatsoever? Anyone? I think I said that 3 times. So with that, we'll close the public hearing portion. We'll open up to any committee members that may have questions or comments. I see Mr. Lombardo. Hand is up. Mr. Lombardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just again to offer my support for John and Chris Lewis. I'm the councilman there in Ward 2. I believe this is the old mock furniture facility. So anything I can do to help, let me know. You can reach me through the clerk's office or Ward2 at akronohio.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardo. Any other committee members with any questions whatsoever? Any committee members? Okie dokie. Any council members with questions? Any council members? Anyone? Okay, very good. We'll now move on to the balance of the agenda. We will, though, again, remind you that 7 o'clock this evening, we're going to do this all over again. We'll make recommendations. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, very good. I'm going to recommend we take time on 4. On 4 and 5, note number 6 was withdrawn. Item number 7, I'd like to ask Sarah Biviano if she could please read in. We do have a substitute, I believe. This is reference to capital budget.
Yes, we do have a substitute. Substitute offered as an amendment, resolution adopting the 2021 Capital Investment and Community Development Program, legally referred to as the Capital Investment Budget, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Biviano. I do see Helen Tomek is here, and can you please talk about the substitute that's introduced. Helen, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. On December 30th, 2020, Council received the 2021 Capital Investment and Community Development Program budget. Legislation was presented to Council on January 25th, and that evening, the Office of Integrated Development presented a presentation to Council members for certain parts of the budget. On February 1st, OID presented a second presentation to Council regarding water and sewer. On February 4th, Council should have received a list of responses of questions that were posed to OID on both January 25th and on February 1st. So those were all submitted to you on February 4th. This amendment, you will notice there is a difference of approximately $38 million decrease. So what we did from December 30th in the past couple of weeks, we reached out to staff and reviewed all the numbers, and we've determined that in some instances, some of the projects were identified, larger amounts were identified. There's an assumption that those activities would take place in 1 year. In talking over with the projects with staff members, we discovered that some of the projects can be broken up in 2 years. So what we did is we're showing 2021 costs for items such as the fixed network advanced metering and infrastructure. We originally showed about $53 million. We're now showing $20 million because in actuality, those are all the expenses that are going to take place in 2021. We also got better numbers for Greystone, Market Street study, and the Copley Road study. After looking at those numbers and based on council's request, we were able to increase the sidewalk program from $565,000 to $705,000. That represents an increase of $140,000. Additionally, there was a request to look at the traffic interventions or speed bumps. Initially, we showed $100,000, and after reviewing the budget, we have increased that by $55,000 to $155,000. So pending that, if you guys have any questions, I will request a suspension of the rules. We need to pass this tonight since we are on holiday on February 15th. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Tomic. Now what is the deadline per the charter, the official deadline, 15th?
15th, correct.
Okay. So as we've heard, we do have to have that this capital budget approved by the 15th. And as everyone is aware that this is basically prepared last year, September, October, and then it's presented to us, I believe, like in December or so. So things change within 3 or 4 month time frame, obviously, and it's going to evolve even more, I'm sure, before the end of the year. So what we'll do at this time, though, is I want to open up to any committee members that may have any questions whatsoever, reference this particular, the capital budget for 2021. Any committee member? I see Mr. Swirsky's hand is officially up.
Just I hope I'm asking, I did submit a question actually through you, Mr. Fusco, about a planned project at Maple and Crosby to at least come up with a plan to slow the traffic. And I haven't heard a response. So I'm hoping maybe while we're here, I could get a response.
Yes, I did forward that on to Mr. LaPica, I believe. Mr.
I could speak to that too,
yeah.
Councilman. Yeah, Mr. Swirsky actually emailed you just before the meeting started. So
I was too busy trying to get in Zoom. I couldn't have seen it.
No problem. But I can tell you just briefly, and then you can read my response. But I did share some information about some of the work that OID and engineering are doing to look at how the restriping and the bike lanes are performed safety-wise. And then we do have some additional opportunities to study safety at that intersection as part of the larger Copley Road safety study that's going on. So take a look at that, and then I'm happy to chat further offline about the specific.
Yeah. Well, we've been pushing for this for about 4 years, so I hope we can go beyond just talking about it and studying it. And one car did end up in the fire department. So it is kind of a dangerous situation. All the stakeholders in the neighborhood have requested help there. They don't really want more studies, but they want you to do some things there. So I look forward to hearing what the concrete solutions are.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Swirsky. That email was forwarded, as you could tell. Okay, I see Ms. Samples, your hand is up as well.
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. I'm sure you got my emails for just different allocations. I just want to make sure for the record that I want us to be really intentional about those allocations when we begin divvying up funds.
Thank you. Thank you. And Ms. Tomic, I see I forward those recommendations on to Ms. Tomic, and it was referenced a lot of those park things and that miscellaneous funds that's within. So good. We will make sure.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Samples. Mr. Lombardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I would like to ask Ms. Tomig for those numbers again on the sidewalk program. you said it increased from, well,
It, from
what-
565,000,
okay,
increase of 140,000. So that will get us to $705,000.
okay, thank you.
Ms. Tomic, what's the difference? I know the original proposal was 565, and so the difference is 140 or so.
Mhm.
How much is special assessments and how much is actual budget?
100,000 is GO, and $40,000 is special assessments.
Very good, thank you. Very good. Any further questions or comments from anyone? Oh, okay, I see Mr. Malik and then Mr. Neal. Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Tomic, for the information and for all of the, the answers last week and the updated budget document. Also, thank you for, taking into account, the feedback and requests from council. Very much appreciate that on the sidewalks and the speed tables. Just a couple questions. I know that there were a couple of instances where there were other increases, and I just hoped you could go into a little bit of detail on each of these. The community center reinvestment program, which I think is great use of funds to increase that, and then residents at Good Park and Oak Park.
So what we did for the community center reinvestment program is we actually, that is under the CDBG line item. So what we actually did there is we are first looking at, as Mr. Hardy presented a couple weeks ago, we are looking at taking a closer look at 3 of our community centers. So we have a facilities assessment for those community centers. So we have to take it to the next step in design costs. So we're looking at about $200,000 for each community center, which is about $600,000. So what we did is we moved money around from one aspect of the community development block grant budget to another aspect of the community development block grant budget. So that's all within CDBG. Regards to residents at Good Park, we have been talking about a partnership with Alpha to build new homes at Perkins Park, at the old Perkins School. So this will allow for some design costs and what that infrastructure, what those roads, sewers, and water will look like. It is something that was not in the original budget, but after conversations with within OID and within engineering, we realized we needed to address that so we can facilitate that project moving forward. And I don't know if Mr. Westcott, that answers your question, or if Mr. Westcott can provide any additional information.
That answers the question.
Okay.
Where was the money moved from within CDBG for the community center reinvestment program?
We had a line item in there called public facilities and improvements. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of tightened up the language and moving it directly to the community center reinvestment program.
Okay. And then the Oak Park public improvements?
That is another project. We issued a RFP about a year and a half ago, and we became aware recently that that project will probably be moving forward sooner rather than later. So again, making sure we have some design costs in there available to us as we begin those conversations with the developer. Again, both of those items, Good Park, once the design is completed, and Oak Park, that will come back to council.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Tomic. I really appreciate all the information over the last month.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Tomic, in regards to the sidewalks, and I'm going to throw in there the tree canopy and whatnot, do we have a way of getting information out to residents so they can know how to participate or how that's going to work, as well as with the speed humps?
So with the sidewalk program, I would have to, to be honest, I don't know how that works. Okay. I know that's it's a rolling application. If residents are interested in getting sidewalks repaired, they can apply to engineering. In terms of our outreach efforts and communication, I'm not familiar with what that looks like, so I can get that information for you by this evening.
Okay.
And then the second question is in regards to speed bumps. There's a group looking at, based on crash data and other information from the police department, what would be the best best locations to place. I'm sure we'll have something ready to present and perhaps the next one.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if that was just my computer or if it was yours, but you kind of broke up a little bit.
Could be mine.
Okay, and then I have one other question. This budget's going to come back before us in May, isn't it?
The capital budget will not.
Okay.
Each item within the capital budget will. However, the community development CDBG budget / home budget / homeless budget will come back before council when Congress passes the allocation.
Okay.
So that could be May, June, or July.
Okay. I just like for it to be documented and noted. Within this capital budget is the segment, and I've had conversations with Mr. Hardy as well as Council President Somerville because it's in her ward. But as Park and Rec Chair, I've expressed my concern about the soccer fields that are slated for Lane Field. Several concerns. One, there is a master plan supposedly that's being formed by members of the school board and the city, as well as I think our convention center, about the infrastructure of our parks, our athletic fields. But my major concern with the soccer fields down at Lane Field is, and this is for historical value for new members of council, understanding what structural and institutional practices create inequities in our community, is that the reason why we're doing the push to build soccer fields down at Lane Field is because we don't want the children playing at the soccer fields of Copley. There's been a long history of discussion. And my concern is that when we have soccer fields that the children that live in West Akron could play on, and it wasn't until they requested and demanded to play there that all of a sudden children outside of our community no longer play there, that we start looking at building soccer fields down at Lane Field. And on the surface, it looks good. Look, we're building soccer fields for the children, but it creates an inequitable impact in two ways. One, the high school facilities were displaced, and the only track they have to practice on is down there at Lane Field. That track is the city's responsibility, not Akron Public Schools. And that track is horrendous. Not only does Bookto practice down there, but so does Emmanuel Christian Academy and another youth program, West Akron Track, that has been that's been around for 20 years. And so when we have soccer fields that our children could play on, we're going to build other soccer fields because we don't want them playing on fields that are in their neighborhood. And that money could go towards a track that could provide a facility for the only public school that has brought indoor and outdoor track championships, multiple boys and girls. They don't have a track to practice on. The youth program, the youth track program, brings national awards every year. They don't have a track. As well as just the community using that. So that's where we have to look at what is equitable policy, equitable investment in our communities. And so I'm hoping that before we actually go through with that, we can have a community discussion about what is actually best. Because there's one other issue with where we have to reevaluate how we use our parks. Because that park out there, the Copley soccer fields, when community members rent that park for tournaments, the one program, they don't write a check to the city of Akron. They write it to a private organization. And so we have to address these things. I want to take this time to give kudos to the Akron Public School Board, who moved immediately to institute equitable policies and practices so that across the board, they could address this issue. We pass legislation every day with budgetary dollars that impact our community. We have to put metrics in place so that this will no longer continue. I've been on council for 10 years. We've been battling with this issue for over 10 years. I'd like for us, this is in the budget, to put a bullet point by this so that we address this. This is just one of multiple issues. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. I just to remind you that the reason for the checks whenever there's a rental that goes to the organization is because they maintain the facilities, if I'm correct. I know that's the way it used to be, and there's a lot of our parks out there. We do that with organizations so that it can help them supplement their expenses over time.
I hear you, Mr. Chair, but this is the thing. Like South Rangers takes care of Lane Field. When people rent South Lane Field, they do not write a check to South Rangers. There's a group that takes place of Erie Island that has down there. People do not write a check to that organization. And if they are going to write a check to the organization, we need to see the books, and that bid needs to come up for bid for members in the community to bid for other opportunities. Because the organization running that field, I don't even know if they reside within the city of Akron.
I don't want to stray too far away from the capital budget, so thank you for bringing that up. Ms. Mobian, I see your hands up as well.
Yes, Mr. Chair. If this is going to continue, considered to be straying away from what we're talking about, I just want to put it on record. We have brought this subject up before, just as we're reviewing the towing districts for the city of Akron. We should review the soccer fields again. There's a reason to look at this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mobian. Any further questions or comments? Very good. Not seeing any. I'd like to entertain a motion that we suspend the rules of the favorable report.
Motion to suspend the rules, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kamer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Samples. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Ayes have it. Against? Again, the ayes have it. Thank you all very much. And thank you, Ms. Tomic and Mr. Segedy and your team for putting this together. It's a lot of work. I want to thank everyone who attended all the capital budget hearings, spent several hours going over line by line what the expenses are actually going to be for the city of Akron for 2021. A lot of good questions came forth. And so we'll report that out favorable this evening and move on to the balance of the agenda, of which I'm going to recommend time on 8 through and including 16. Item 17, though, is Mr. Antonucci, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the zoning code, kind of like a reclassification in reference to the Romig Road area, I believe. Can you give us maybe a 1 or 2 sentence description in reference to this? We talked about this. I know council representative for the area, Mr. Freeman, had some questions and concerns. I believe they've been addressed. Mr. Antonucci, though, could you please give us a brief description?
Oh, yes. Yeah, similar to what we're doing essentially at Chapel Hill back several years back when the mall was still standing, Rolling Acres Mall was still standing and vacant. We looked at the zoning there and actually went to UPD 45 and 46, which essentially permitted only commercial uses. So we essentially said commercial with certain development requirements. So now we're looking at that with Amazon being at that location now, that there will be a need for retail uses there. So what this does is introduces retail in UPD 45 and 46 as permitted uses now. So
very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Any questions or comments? Oh, I see Mr. Freeman online.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Mr. Antonucci and the whole department over there for working with me, and appreciate all the time that he put into this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, let's entertain a motion that we accept the report and a favorable report on this particular item. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? You guys have it. We'll report that out favorable. We're going to take time on the balance of the regular agenda, move into the new list of legislation. The second item is the capital budget, which we just voted on. The third item is extending a conditional use grant to Kinez Homes Incorporated, doing business as Triben Investments LLC to construct single-family detached allotment on the northwest side of Diagonal Road south of Copley. This is to extend this for a term of 1 year. Mr. Antonucci, brief description.
Yeah, that's correct. This is the crossings at Alt Farm Development. They are looking to move forward on this soon. This ordinance has expired though. It's a 2-year ordinance. It expired back in July. So we need to ask for an extension of a year for that development to be able to get underway.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Is there any questions from any committee members at this time? Any questions from council members or committee members at this time? This is simply, in its simplest terms, we already addressed the conditional use zoning on this. If everyone recalls, a while back, they need an extension though to move forward. And so it's a good thing probably to do. We've already had the public hearing a couple of years ago. It's been addressed. I'm going to ask for a favorable report with suspension of the rules on this item. Is there a motion?
I move for a favorable report.
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you both.
I'm good at being second.
Okay, very good. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Against? The ayes have it. Very good. The next one may take a second, so relax. It's a kind of a long description. Ordinance amending number 361, 2020 for the purpose of amending the list and schedule of the special assessments to be levied for the purpose of paying the cost of an energy special improvement district project related to the acquisition, construction, installation, and improvement of certain public improvements in the city of Akron, located at 530 and 540 South Main Street, in cooperation with the Akron Summit County Energy Special Improvement District Incorporated. Provisions to the cooperative agreement, special assessment agreement related to that project necessitated by the amendment of the list and the schedule of the special assessments. Very good. In its simplest terms, I am going to ask Mr. Volman for a brief description on this particular item.
Yeah, I don't know. It might even be briefer than what the heading was. Now, if you remember back end of last year, we came with some legislation to allow for the issuing of assessments in connection with some energy efficient improvements that are going to be going on at this development for Canal Place. At the time, we had told that we would be back with the final number. They need to have the initial authority to price the bonds that they're going to get to pay for the improvements. And then once we have the final number, we come back so we can have the exact number of the assessment to put on the property. Again, this is the Development Finance Authority is going to be issuing bonds. Chris Burnham is actually here if people have questions about the project itself. These assessments will be paid by the owner to the city, and the city has pledged that money to go to for the security for the bonds itself.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Volman. I had asked council to please review this over the weekend. I understand there's a sense of urgency for this particular piece. However, though, I want to ask if there's any committee members at this point who have questions or comments relative to this special assessment estimate. Anyone? Okay. Any council members have any questions or comments? Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Volman, for the information. Just to clarify, I know we discussed this last time, but, basically the city is in some ways acting as a pass-through here, right? We're not pledging any money besides the assessment value to pay these bonds, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And the agreement itself says we are, our only obligation is to pass along the assessments that we collect.
Okay. And can you just speak to also briefly the changes in the cost? I mean, was it valued up or down or?
It went down quite considerably. I think is when they come in the first time, it's a maximum not to exceed. I'm not exactly sure why the first time, has to be, or the second time can't be higher than the first time, but that's part of the procedure. So I think they'd come in with an estimate of around 15 million. But when they crunched the numbers and got their interest rate and finally priced the project, the assessments over the two parcels will be about $9 million.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Woolman. We always appreciate your studious explanations. Mr. Burnham, is there anything you'd like to add about the project? Thank you for being here with us.
Well, I'm on the phone. I don't know. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Only to say it's a great project. It's a really interesting group of developers, some are from out of town, and are really kind of excited about doing business in Akron for the first time. And in total, it's about a $42 million project. These bonds are $5 million of it. So it's a significant investment in Akron. Some market rate apartments, some ground level retail, and I think most importantly, keeping the anchor tenants that are in that building, like Spectrum's Call Center, Republic Title. Parts of those buildings, there's 2 buildings, parts of them haven't had anything in them since 1982. So this is pretty exciting. We're glad to be part of it.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
I guess the only thing I'd ask is there anyone from the developers who'd like to speak about their plans or their work?
Councilman, I had not passed along the joining information to them. I apologize. I did not think of that.
Well, maybe in the future we can have them come in, but that's all I have.
We did talk about this last year. I do know that we did have discussion. I believe it was the development agreement that we discussed and voted on last year.
We did.
Yeah, thank you.
We did back in the summer of last year was the development agreement.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, but we could always use a refresher, Mr. Malik. Any further questions or comments? Many council members, committee members. Again, time is of the essence in reference to this particular piece. So I'd like to entertain a motion that we make a favorable report with suspension of the rules. Is there a motion?
So move.
There a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. We'll then move.
Thank you.
Report that out this evening.
Thank you.
Mr. Volman, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I know Mr. Dotson was here as well. So with that, we are now adjourned, finally. Planning. Thank you all. Thank you.
Next committee meeting of the day will be the Public Utilities and Green Committee, and that'll start at 2:30. So we'll stop the live stream now and be back at 2:30. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah.